child, I remember when I was 6 years old, my mum had my younger brother. She gave birth to him. And I remember the day after my mum had given birth to my younger brother, my dad brought myself and some of the other siblings to the hospital to see my mum and to see the newborn baby. I was only a 6-year-old, but I do remember this occurring. But I remember coming in to the hospital room where my mum was and looking at this little child. I wasn't allowed to touch because I was only a 6-year-old, but I looked and I thought, this is incredible. I've got a little brother. It brought great joy to me to be able to see. I'm sure many of us have had these experiences, some of them probably as mothers seeing your child for the first time, or perhaps as a husband or as a relative or an uncle or an aunt or a niece or a nephew seeing a newborn child for the very first time. There is a certain delight and joy in this. I'm sure we've all had this experience. Sometimes people get to nurse the newborn child as well. And I've seen over the years, sometimes some relatives, I've got a number of brothers and sisters, and I have quite a number of nieces and nephews. Sometimes the mother or the father is quite happy for the priest, the uncle, to come along and do a little nursing, and others are a little bit more circumspect, even today. We've probably had these experiences. But being able to come and be there with the others who are delighting in the birth and to look and to see is a beautiful thing. We have the story today of the Magi, wise men. Often we refer to them as three. We've given them names from tradition, Caspar, Melchior and Balthazar. And they've given these three names to represent the three gifts that are talked about. Gifts of gold, frankincense and myrrh. In our tradition, the Catholic tradition, we often think there is three. The Orthodox say that there were 12 wise men or 12 leaders who came. We don't really know as to how many there were, but we know a number of them came, and they came to look and see, and they brought gifts. I remember going to visit brothers and sisters who've had children, and I have brought gifts as well. The gift I often see that's brought at a hospital, or when you see a newborn child, people often, at least for me, people seem to often bring flowers, they bring chocolates. Depending on the grandmother, they might bring some booties, something beautiful that they've knitted. They bring gifts. But they don't just bring gifts of tangible things, but they bring that gift of joy, that gift of delight in the birth of a child. And that's what I think the Magi bring. They come with delight, they come with joy, but they don't just come with a joy that a boy has been born. They come, as we're told, with homage. They come to worship. And they do this not by being able to touch, to cradle or nurse the child, but they come by seeing. And by seeing, they can believe. What's happened over the last 9 months or so is that we've had to distance ourselves a little bit. And as we're hearing, even just in the next week or so, things will be, the restrictions will be increased here within our own city. But we still can see. We can still take delight and joy in things that we see. And like the wise men, we can see, we can believe, and we can do homage. We can worship. Right throughout Christian history, there have been opportunities where people have seen and then they believe. Thomas the Apostle, after the resurrection, says, "Unless I can see, I will not believe." And we know 8 days after the resurrection, Jesus appears and says to Thomas, "Come, stick your hand, put your hand in the holes, put your hand in my side, doubt no longer, but believe." And then we have this beautiful phrase from Thomas the Apostle. He says, "My Lord and my God." And that's the phrase that we can say, and I think that's probably in essence what the wise men said when they came to see the baby Jesus. They didn't come and touch, they didn't get to nurse and cradle, but they came to see, they believed, and they recognised this isn't just a boy, this is God. This is my Lord, this is my God. St. Thomas Aquinas, one of the great doctors of the church, he asked people at the moment of the consecration, when the priest lifts the host up, for us to look. Traditionally, we've rung the bell at that time to remind us to look, that something incredible is happening. We can see, we can believe, and Thomas Aquinas says we can make that prayer of Thomas the Apostle our prayer as well. My Lord, my God. We hold up the chalice. The priest holds up the chalice, the bells ring at the moment of the consecration. You're not looking at me, you're looking at the chalice, that this is God here amongst us. And we worship like the wise men who knelt down, who were wise enough to know this isn't just a boy, that this is God. And we can do that with the Eucharist as well. We can see the host and we can think, oh, that's bread. Or we can say, it's more than that, that this is God amongst us. This is my Lord, this is my God. Every time we come into the church, it's an opportunity for us to come, you could say, into the nursery where Jesus, Mary and Joseph are. In my experiences of even quite recently going in and visiting relatives or other people's homes where they've got little babies who are asleep, people speak softly and quietly when the baby's around. They don't want to wake the baby. And we've probably all learnt if you speak too noisily, if you wake the baby, you're in a bit of trouble. Because I know mums do a lot of effort, and sometimes the dads too, in getting the little babies to sleep. And so we speak with a whisper almost. There is a sacredness when you come close to a newborn baby. And that same sacredness we can have when we come into the church. This is a place where the baby Jesus is. We come into the church and we can see the tabernacle. At moments in history where people weren't able to receive communion because of things like the pandemic, the role of the tabernacle became very important. People could come and they'd be able to see the tabernacle and they knew that was the presence of Jesus. A little bit like going into the nursery and being able to look and see. And people were quiet. And we can do that here in our church. We have the tabernacle. It's often covered, almost a bit like the clothes that a little baby is wrapped in. We have our tabernacle is wrapped as well. And there's often some candles around our tabernacle as a reminder. And you'll see this in most churches that you go into. So like the wise men who came to Bethlehem, they didn't just come in to see a baby boy. They came to worship. They saw, they believed, and they made an act of faith. This is my Lord, this is my God. When we see, let us be like the wise men. Let's be wise men, let's be wise women, let's be wise children, teenagers, to come and do homage. Let us look, let us see, let us, if we're given the opportunity, let us cradle the baby Jesus with great reverence, with great care, like we would a newborn child. At the end of our gospel, we're told that the wise men went home by a different path. There's a number of saints who've written about this. And they've said that the wise men went back by a different path, not because they wanted to avoid Herod, but that once a person comes to Jesus, you don't just go home the same way. When you come to Jesus and you receive Jesus, you see Jesus, you are changed. And so your path in life will be changed. Every time we come to Mass and we go home, we should go home changed people. The question for us today, maybe for this week, is how will we be changed tonight by seeing Jesus? How will we then find Jesus and see Jesus in our world as we go from our church this evening? The wise men came, they saw the baby Jesus, they believed, they adored, they worshipped, and it changed their life. Let our seeing, our worship, our adoration, our faith change us tonight and this week.